Hi and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia if you are new here. I have a teething baby and I gave her some ibuprofen, so I'm hoping she'll play quietly, but she didn't sleep well, so she might be a little loud. So if this video is choppy, it's probably because I had to go get up and attend to her. So today I thought that I would share my birth story of my oldest child with you. July is Lydia's birth month, and I just thought this would be a fun way to commemorate her birthday, literally her birthday. So if she ever wants to go back and look at it, she can know all the details and everything that happened. So I found out that I was pregnant with Lydia about a month after I got back from Korea. The year before we got pregnant with her, I had been stationed in Korea, South Korea. I was in the Air Force and I had been stationed there for about a year. It was a really odd time for me because so many life changes happened. I came home from a foreign country. I was married because we were married like a month before he deployed the year before that in 2014. Lots of things were going on. I'm learning how to be married. I was out of the military. I didn't have a job. I had worked from the time that I was a teenager all the way up till I was, I think, 28 when I got out, something like that. And so a lot of life. Oh, and we were learning how to be married, like really married, not geographically separated, married. Literally like a month. Did you say hi? Literally a month to the day that I got home from South Korea, I found out that I was pregnant. Steven was working night shift at the time, and so, no, he was on day shift. I remember he was on day shift and he had to be at work at like 5 in the morning, and so he would leave around 4:30 to get to work, and I would get up with him and make him breakfast. Is that interesting? You say hi to everybody? Are you going to say hi to everybody? So I would get up with Steven around 4 in the morning and help him get ready for work and make him breakfast. And then he would go to work, and then I would go back to bed for a little while. Well, I remember one morning I was laying in bed. It was probably like 4 weeks exactly since I got back from Korea. And I just felt this little tingle in my stomach. And then this tingle in my chest, like bam, bam, back to back. I don't know what that was, but I felt it. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. We bought a pregnancy test, but we didn't actually, we bought a pregnancy test, don't ask me how I remember this, but it was on a Friday. And then on Sunday, Sunday night, I remember we had friends over and we had a taco night. And so I took the test like right before our friends got there, and I set it down and I forgot about it. And so 2 hours later, I went back and looked and it said positive. And I thought, oh my gosh, but the directions also said that if you leave it for longer than a certain amount of time, it can be a false positive. So the next morning I took another pregnancy test and bam, it lit up. Like there was no wait 3 minutes, it was positive right away. I wish I could say that I was like overjoyed on every level, but I think I was excited like externally because it was something new and different and it was a baby, but I think deep down like I was really scared to be a mom because there were so many changes going on in our life, in my life in particular. I think too, just getting out of the military, there's just something about being out of the military to go from this like highly structured, rigid environment to just suddenly you're free. It was so weird. Like it was just, my brain was, just the stress level was through the roof. I think I just wanted more time to think about it. I wanted more time to adjust to my new life. I didn't want to be pregnant while on this wild rapids of all the life changes that I was going through. I just wanted time to get to like slow waters, and but that didn't happen because I think at 12 weeks, we got through the first trimester and everything was good. I did have a lot of morning sickness with her. I was so sick. I couldn't stand the smell of coffee. I couldn't stand meat. Like cutting up raw meat just made me want to, it was bad. Like everything was like hyper sensitive. All of like my smell and my taste, everything was hypersensitive with her. And the only thing that helped me, oh, I remember Steven's dad in November. Steven's dad passed away, and we went to Missouri for the funeral and just to be with his family. The Missouri, driving up there, his mom lives out in the country, and so every road is so windy and zigzaggy, and I mean, my stomach, I was eating Tums like candy, and it was not helping. And so we ended up going to urgent care, and the urgent care prescribed me Zofran ODT, which is the kind that dissolves under the tongue, and that, I was a new person. I mean, I could barely get out of bed. The first couple days we were there, my nausea was so bad. But after taking the Zofran, it was a game changer. Everyone said, take ginger, or do these suckers, wear those little things on your wrist that you press for acupuncture. Nope. As soon as I find out I'm pregnant, every time I'm like, prescribe me Zofran, because that is what works for me. So after 12 weeks exactly, my nausea cleared up and everything went back to normal, semi-normal. Like I didn't have any smell issues or taste issues. I wasn't nauseous or vomiting anymore. I just felt good, and I was able to get stuff done. Like the unpacking that I wanted to do that I couldn't, because my husband had got back from deployment also and moved into this house and hadn't really unpacked anything, because I think he was just waiting for me to see where we wanted to put everything. And so when I came back a year after we got married, I was, I was trying to unpack, but then I was pregnant and nauseous, and it was just not happening. So we finally got unpacked, and people gave us, like, they found out we were having a baby. We found out we were having a girl, and people gave us all this stuff, like a crib and clothes and baby gear and all this stuff. And so I got this little nursery started, and it was so sweet. But we had a landlord who was just not a good landlord, to put it nicely. And one day she actually had a property manager, and I think they were dating. Well, I guess he had some family problems and had to go, I think it was to Michigan, and they had a squabble, and she fired him and broke up with him. And one day she shows up at our door and is basically told us, this is in March, I think, like March 1st. We had just paid rent, and around March 1st, we had just paid rent, and she basically told us that we were now in charge of taking care of the grass, because the yard was pretty bad, like it was pretty high at that point. And she told us that we could either pay her to pay someone to mow the grass, or we can mow the grass ourselves. I'm like, well, I'm not mowing this grass with a newborn, and we're not paying someone. The agreement was that you would pay it, or you would take care of it, because her boyfriend had been mowing the grass. And she just wasn't really kind about it. And there are a few other things that she tried to tack on to payments, and we just pretty much went and looked at apartments and moved, which was really stressful for me, because now suddenly I'm having to pack up all the work I did to move into another apartment and unpack it, which it ended up working out. I was still in my 20s, and I didn't have any, I was pregnant, like I didn't have any other children, and my husband worked odd shifts, and so I was able to just say June 1st is when everything has to be done. And I put my nose to the grindstone and did it. I do not have that kind of energy, strength, determination. I just don't have that kind of, whatever I had to do that, I don't have that anymore. I can't just say I'm gonna do it come hell or high water. I can't do that anymore. I have 3 kids. But back then I could, and everything was unpacked by June 1st, because our due date was July 2nd, and I really wanted to have everything ready just in case I went into labor early. I didn't want to have to worry about it after she got there. We did have one complication, and I wouldn't call it a complication. We had concerns that the baby would have genetic issues when we were pregnant. I think I was about 5 months, and they were doing some kind of lab work, and they said, would you like to have genetic testing? And I thought, ooh, genetic testing, that sounds really cool. Sure. And they did it, and one day I got a call that said, Miss Beret, there's a chance that your baby could have some genetic complications. I won't get into what it is, but there's a 2 point something percent chance that your baby could have it. And I thought, oh my gosh, like my baby could have this issue. And not that she would be any less loved, just that, you know, I don't think any parent wants their child to struggle or have complications in their life. And so we went back for further testing, and it ended up being nothing, but it did cost us $200 because our insurance didn't cover it. And which I didn't know at the time. So there's a lot of things that you find out along the way because it sounds cool, it sounds innovative, but in reality, it's really not that big of a deal. I think sometimes all that extra testing can be helpful. I think it can also cause a lot of stress and worry. The other funny thing that happened with my pregnancy with Lydia is naming her. We both, at the time, we had a lot of growing to do our first year. Let's be honest. I think most people do. I think I've heard the first year of marriage is the hardest. And so when we found out she was a girl, I was like, we have to have a name. We have to have a name because I want to tell everybody her new name. And we did not do that very well. If it was a test, we did not pass it. I had a book. Someone had given me a book with over 1,000 baby names in it. And we each went through all the names and we wrote down our top 10 favorite. And then we took each other's list and we took, I think, the top 3 or 4 from the other's list. And ended up, I don't remember exactly what happened, but I know like I just threw a name on there. I just threw the name Tara, T-E-R-R-A. I just threw it on there, not thinking about it. But apparently that was Steven's favorite name, and I hated it. And I'm like, I am not naming my baby Tara. This is how ridiculous this got. And then he's like, but you chose it. I'm like, I know, but I hate that name. I'm like, I'm not naming my child Tara, like terracotta, or what other kind of Taras do you know? And I'm like, I'll do T-A-R-A. He's like, no, we're not doing that. We actually ended up having to go talk to our pastor at the time about it because it got bad. Like, we were fighting over this baby name. I think looking back, I was just very insistent. I was so mature. I thought, oh my gosh, we have to name this baby. We have to name it now. I was a girl, so I thought, you know, I think most girls think about that kind of stuff. What are my future children's names gonna be? And I don't think guys think about that. At least Steven hadn't, and he probably wanted more time to think about it. And so I was like, we gotta name her, we gotta name her, we gotta name her. So we actually ended up deciding on Lydia. I think he gave me the first name, which was Lydia, and then he got the middle name. He chose Faith, but he wanted to spell it F-A-Y-T-H-E. And I was about to argue and say, no, we're not naming it that. We're not spelling it that way. But something inside me just said, just let it go. At least you have a name. And so that was how we got her name. It was about compromise and accepting heartbreak and learning to compromise and not be demanding in our own ways and selfish. Because ultimately, I think in my situation, that's what it boiled down to, is I was being selfish and I wanted it my way. I didn't want to share. It was my kid, but it's his kid too. So anyway, the big day comes, and I actually carried all the way through to my due date. And at the time, I was less than a year out of the military, and I still didn't want to accept the fact that a due date is an estimation, not a, like, it's not like it's not like someone's flying in from in an airplane, you know, like, okay, your flight's supposed to land at 3:15 on Sunday. Like, that's not how that works. Like, it's, you know, you're going to be arriving sometime within the next month is kind of how it's how baby works, right? And so, but at the time, I was fresh out of the military. I wanted things a certain way. Like, it, you know, I was very like by the book. It has to look like this. You tell me July 2nd. She needs to be here July 2nd. Well, what happened was on July 1st, I had my 40-week appointment, and I asked my doctor to swab my membranes, which is a very painful experience. The doctor basically takes her fingers, puts them in the cervix, and sweeps around these membranes. They're described online like like spider webs, and the thought is once those membranes are broken, somehow it releases hormones that start labor. She did that and it was very painful, but she got it. And within, I think around 7 or 8 o'clock the next night, my water broke. I was sitting down in a chair and I think I was reading or playing on my phone, and I sat down. It was a Saturday night. I sat down, I went to the bathroom, and there was all this extra stuff coming out. And I thought, I'm not peeing, what is this? And I thought, oh my God, my water broke. And so we had a doula who was working with us, and I called her and I told her what had happened. I said, but I'm not having any contractions. And she said, okay, well, if you want, you can go to Walmart and get one of the little pH test strips that they have for fish, or that they use in fish tanks. And if you test that with some of this water, it will help. It'll tell you, I guess, the amniotic fluid has its own pH color, and if that color pops up, then that means your water broke. And I said, okay. So we did, and my water broke, and right when we were in Walmart, my contractions started. And so Stephen was on the phone with her, and she came, and we labored at home until probably like 10:30 or 11. I was trying to relax, but at the time I didn't understand. Again, I was fresh out of the military. I was all about like control, and this is how it's gonna work, and this is, my body's gonna do this. And that's how I always did anything. And labor does not work that way. Labor does, your body's gonna do what your body's gonna do, and there's just a way it works, and you don't have control over it. And so I was trying to do it all with willpower and with my head and just pushing through it. Didn't work. And by probably midnight, I was like, give me an epidural, I'm over this. I kind of wish I had stayed at home longer, because I did that with my third pregnancy, my third labor, my third birth, and I did really well right up until the end, and then it was all downhill. But I did have a lot of complications with my third child. Anyway, we get to the hospital, they get me checked in, and we're just like hanging out in bed. And I think when I got to the hospital, I took on like this patient mentality where I'm like, okay, tell me what to do, instead of just listening to my body. Again, that's why I wish I had stayed home a lot longer. But I ended up getting an epidural because I did have really bad thigh labor. It was just going down my legs, and no one understood. I'm like, it's going down my legs. And they're like, labor contractions don't go down your legs. I'm like, it's going down my legs. And I couldn't handle it. And so they gave me an epidural. It started kicking in, but I just kept having the thigh labor even through my epidural. Like my legs were numb, but even through my epidural, I had this, they call them hot spots, where parts of your body you can still feel part of it. And I was having this burning, oh, it was so awful. It was like burning just down my thigh, like that triangle beneath my belly button, just that, ugh, it was awful. And so I think that I got that around 1 or 2, and by 6:30, well, I think the doctor came in about 6:45, and I was just laying there like, okay, whatever, just get this baby out of me. And we were like, push her out, and they're like, do a reverse Kegel. I'm like, how do I push? What do I do? And they said, do a reverse Kegel. And I did, and they had a mirror there, and we had the birthing bar up, which is just like this thing that attaches. It's like a little gymnastics bar kind of thing, and normally you could hold it to squat, but couldn't squat because I had an epidural in my back. And so our doula actually had this, it's called a rebozo, and it's like a giant sash, and she wrapped it up around the bar so I could pull up and bear down on the baby to help push her out. And I just kept feeling this, I told you I had that hot spot with my epidural. I just kept feeling this hitting against my leg, and just the burning was like, it was awful. And I'm like, something's not right. And I don't even know what happened after that. I think somebody ended up pushing some stuff around, and I think our doula kind of moved her around a little bit, and that helped to get her out. And and she came out and I heard her crying, and it was a really awesome sound. And it's neat because I could hear, I don't know if this makes sense, but I feel like certain families, like maybe the voices sound similar, and I could hear my voice in her, if that makes sense. She just had this octave in her cry that is similar to my voice, and my mom's voice, and a few other people in my family. I felt really bad for my husband because he wasn't ready. Like, Steven was not ready for everything that happened, because I guess, like, when, you know, everything comes out, all the fluids and liquids and blood and the baby and everything came out, and I guess the doctor said he lost color, and they're like, get him a seat, because they thought he was gonna pass out. They handed her to me, and it was kind of weird because she was so warm and squishy and slimy and all sorts of little things, and it was weird because I didn't know what to feel. Like, normally when you think of having your baby with you, you want to feel warm and all cuddly and sweet. I don't know, like that mushy feeling, all those mushy things. But I didn't feel that. I just was like, oh, here's a baby. I just gave birth to a baby. It was an odd thing. But there's actually this thing called the birth pause or the birth delay, something like that, where after the mom has done the work of delivering the child, her body is just like, oh, I can breathe. I didn't think they would be as floppy. Oh, what is it? I didn't think they would be as floppy as they were, as she was. She was very floppy, but it makes sense if you think about it. They're just floating around in fluid. They don't really use their muscles for much. That was pretty much the birth story. We went home. Steven had 3 weeks off from work, and then he went back. I think he had 21 days, and the 21 days were great because I wasn't by myself with her. I had help at night, but it was really hard when he went back to work because I was alone in an apartment with a baby. And I at the time, I didn't acknowledge it. I think, again, I was less than a year out of the military after I had her, and I just had this, I can take care of it, I don't get sick, push on, drive on, push through mentality. And I think I did that a lot with probably postpartum depression. And we lived in an apartment kind of away from everything, and it was a rough, I would say the first 6 months of her life were really rough for me, because it was just a realization that, you know, babies don't work like, at least this baby didn't. I don't know, maybe some people have their baby on a timer and their babies take naps when they're supposed to and they sleep when they're supposed to and all that. This baby didn't. This baby cried all the time, and maybe she had colic, I don't know. It was a rough time, and you know, we couldn't go to the park. We were kind of in a place with the church that we were going to they were helpful, but they weren't helpful. Like, you know, they brought us food, but you know, as far as friends and sociability and just company, like having someone to check on us, like no one did that. So, and we were military, so we didn't have family. We were by ourselves. It was just a really hard time for us and for me. I think Steven struggled because he, you know, suddenly he goes from being my focus to now there's a baby involved, and I'm this new mom trying to figure everything out and struggling with my own issues with motherhood. I feel like I wish more when people talked about this. Just not even just postpartum depression, because sometimes I feel like people make it so scientific. They make it so, it's so scientific, but to break it down, like, this is what I went through, this is what I felt. Sometimes I think just having another ear there to hear you would be so helpful, just to be able to say, I'm depressed, I'm struggling. There's not a lot of people out there that you can talk to like that. I will say, I think it's made me a lot more empathetic, whereas I used to be very judgmental. Maybe this was God humbling me, to be honest, because I used to be very judgmental of people and their problems. Well, suck it up, buttercup, just tough on through it. And then I went through this, for the first 6 months, and to be honest, it was probably even longer because I just couldn't keep up with my own expectations of what I thought a mother should be. I probably set myself up for failure by putting my standards too high, to be if I'm honest. But I think it's made me a much more empathetic person, because I don't mind sitting down and talking to someone about their problems, not in a psychological point of view, but just yeah, that is hard. Motherhood is hard. Life is hard. All these things are hard, and you know, I think it made me a lot more compassionate towards people, because I'm like, I get it. I'm not gonna judge you because I get it. It was too much for me. It's probably too much for you. So I think what has really helped me though, my husband and I were in such a hurry to get out of where we were stationed. Like, he applied for so many different jobs in other places and we never got it. And I think as frustrating as it was at the time, and as sad as I was when we bought a house where we lived, like, I don't want to buy a house here. Just let us leave, let us leave. I think this was probably the best thing for us. Sometimes I think God knows what we need more than we do, or more than what we want. And living in this house has really helped us. We have a backyard that my kids can play in. We have amazing neighbors. We have an amazing church that we would never have found. We started going to a new church that we never would have found had we not had neighbors here invite us. And I think just having that stability really, really helped. It really helped pull me out of the depression that I faced. But I do think postpartum depression is real, and I think it can last. And I think it can even stick with children. Like, I didn't feel it as much as I did with my other child. But I think short sugars. I'm rambling. That is Lydia's birth story. Really no complications after she was born, except she cried a lot, which again was probably just my own inexperience. I'm sure maybe there were times she was gassy or dirty diapers or what have you that I didn't know. You know, I didn't know what to do. Maybe she was overtired. I don't know. It's hard with your first baby. Parenting is trench warfare in real time, and you can train as hard as you want, and I know the training helps, but it doesn't mean that when the shots go off and the bombs start dropping, it doesn't mean you're gonna it doesn't make it any easier. Like, it's still hard. Parenting is trench warfare. That's what I say. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. And leave me a comment below letting me know what you think. Okay, I'm gonna go feed this baby. What do you eat?